Hi, my name is Aston Fernando. I'm a Ward 25 City of Toronto Council candidate. I've lived in the community for 25 plus years.
Hi there. My name is Jose Moreno Garcia, and I am running for councillor of Ward 25, Scarborough Rouge Park.
Good morning or good afternoon. It's been a long day. I'm Donna LaRush, and I'm running for council for City of Toronto, Ward 25, Scarborough Rouge Park, and I'm number 10 on the ballot. So I hope you'll vote for me.
My, my name is Gregory Rodriguez, and I am running for Scarborough Rouge Park, Ward 25.
Good afternoon. It's Sean Allen running for City Council, Ward 25, Scarborough Rouge Park.
There, my name is Reza Kostel, and I am a candidate for City Councilor for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Hi, my name is Walter Alvarez Bardales. I'm a candidate for council for Ward 25.
Hi, my name is Brian Matthews, and I'm running for the by-election for Councillor Ward 25, Scarborough Rouge Park.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Anusriskanaraja, and I'm running to be your city councillor for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nathan Shan. I'm running in Scarborough Rouge Park for city councillor. I'm number 17 on the ballot.
No, I do not. I do not support not hearing from our constituents, our neighbors. We need to hold consultations. We need to have a transparent manner, and I do support sixplexes, but it has to be dealt with in a more transparent and with more consultations.
One short answer is no, I do not support it. I believe that there needs to be a balanced approach to housing, right? Where everybody's voice is heard, especially those who are going to be affected by any sixplexes or any type of residential zoning. When it comes to commercialized retail into the areas, I completely disagree with that kind of stuff because as we know, Scarborough's by landmass is one of the biggest area in the city, and our area was not designed to have this sort of quote unquote 15 minutes cities that the city is trying to develop. So as a father, and I've spoken to many residents already with children, commercializing some of these areas is not really a good thing because now we're having, alcohol, we're gonna have some cannabis, we're gonna have restaurants, we're gonna have all these things that, should be in a commercial zone. Therefore, I would oppose, to any sort of commercializing and rezoning of retail into residential areas.
No, I do not support this initiative. I've been very involved with this. I've made a deputation at the Planning and Housing Committee on July 15th. I had the opportunity to appeal this. I have found out that we have lost our rights to appeal. As far as I'm concerned, the official plan zoning bylaw was changed without public consultation. I think that's wrong. The Planning Act says that there has to be public consultation, and I never got any, and I think it's honestly going to have a negative impact on the majority of homeowners in the GTA. So I'm very much opposed to this. I believe that the official plan was developed for good reason, and if we're going to be changing the official plan, we should have proper public consultation.
Oh, I believe the residents should have a voice. That's what my whole platform is based on. The freedom of speech and the freedom for the residents to voice their opinions. I find that City Hall, they preach democracy, but they don't practice it. And my main platform is having something called the Four Corners approach, where there's about 4 weeks in a month to 4 weeks in a month. Each week, I'm going to have a town hall meeting in each quarter of my ward. So, dividing the ward into four corners. And I'm going to have a town hall that's going to be about 4 hours long. You can shoot as much information as you want at me, and I'm not going to run.
Okay.
I feel that as a city official, you should answer all questions.
Okay.
No, I don't. I think it's important that residents have a voice, and it's very important that we keep residential communities residential. And I think having businesses and residential spaces diminishes the value of the communities that we live. And I wouldn't support a motion like that.
Question: No, I do not. I do not support sixplexes as of right. Mainly, when I think anytime it comes to any planning and development decisions that need to be made, I believe residents need to be front and center of those decisions. They need to be at the table. I think more importantly, the city has a historical precedent of painting all neighborhoods with the same brush, so to speak. And I think Toronto is a collection of many different neighborhoods, all with different unique characteristics. So I think with these kind of decisions, as of right is undemocratic. It takes our voices away as residents. So I think it's important to treat these development decisions on a case-by-case basis, where residents are at the table and they're able to be consulted. Anything short of that, again, is undemocratic, and it takes us away from being involved in the shape of our community and what it's going to look like in the future. And I don't agree with that.
Absolutely not. As a future scientist, I can tell you that the research needs to be conducted first and the action later, not the other way around. I have several problems with that proposition, and taking away the right for people could create many more problems down the road because the infrastructure has to go along with it. So I am against it.
Absolutely not. I'm not a favor of as of right zoning as it is, because it does take away the local planning voice and removes it completely. It's a broad stroke that doesn't apply to every area in the city. Now, if they want to re-allow East York and downtown purpose-built buildings that has a retail storefront with a housing element attached to that, that they made illegal a long time ago. If they want to re-legalize that, I have no problem with that. And, you know, the corner stores embedded in our communities, like at Centennial and Lawson, that those retail spaces serve a good purpose that is local in the community. But if they want to take a corner 2-story 4-bedroom home with a 2-car garage and allow people to commercialize it and put in, say, a restaurant or something like that, that wouldn't belong in purpose-built subdivisions within our neighborhoods. So no, not broad strokes across the city. I'm not in favor of, and the as of right zoning is the wrong tool to use.
Okay.
The question, I don't know why this is a question the city has put us in. It makes absolutely no sense. We are the final voice of how our communities want to be shaped. And like you said, I can't say it better, as of right shouldn't mean taking away the rights of residents.
No, I don't. I don't think each ward can have the same policy around zoning, around development, because Scarborough Rouge Park is the size of Pickering. And, in Pickering, you have mayor, many councillors and regional councillor, and you have one councillor. So one councillor cannot decide that it's the same thing for across the 6 beautiful neighborhoods that we have. So it's important to rethink this initiative and figure out what are the areas in which within the city that we can prioritize further development, which areas can sustain and support further development, which areas can't. And the neighborhoods and the neighborhood association has to be part and parcel of that conversation. In fact, it should be the center of the conversation, the community groups that are impacted.
Yes, we need to receive our fair funding from the city for Scarborough, and speaking particularly to make transit better for transit riders. I'm the only candidate that has proposed for the bus lanes to have modified parity bus lanes for during morning rush hour and evening rush hour.
So do you support Do you consider the parking a concern?
Yes, because people will need to leave their cars at the parking lot, so we need to find additional parking spots at these TTC stations.
This question, it's tricky because from what I heard from the event last night, um, certain associations can actually get involved in the decisions that can affect the entire ward, right? So I am a big supporter of transit because people need to live, get to work, get their kids to school. Students need to get to classes, to universities, to the colleges. So I believe that Toronto is in the right path. Unfortunately, we're about 30 to 40 years behind where transit should be.
Mhm. Parking is an issue across all of the city of Toronto, and so is transit, right? So there's a lot of people who are working. So to answer your question, no. I mean, parking is important, especially in Scarborough Rouge Park, where you have people coming from Pickering, you have people coming from the north. You need to have parking, right? But parking, like I said, in all of city of Toronto, and I'm opposed to in all of packages, when things are like Scarborough's really, really unique. And I, as I've said many times, I believe in equity, and equity should, Scarborough should be getting its fair share. And so, of course, we should be getting better transit, and we should have parking.
Absolutely not. Again, the residents did not want this. This was all thought up by geniuses downtown at City Hall instead of asking the residents around, what do you think? And is there a solution? Maybe the residents have a better idea. I don't understand why we're not pooling ideas together and sifting through it, like brainstorming and using the pros and cons idea of selecting the best approach to take. And as your city councilor, if you choose me, that's the approach I'm going to take. I'm going to give you guys the decision-making tools. And it's all through the internet. It's very simple. I give you guys the outline. We do a Google survey with everybody in the residents or in the residents in the area. And that's how we do it. It's democracy, basic democracy.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm pro-transit, anti-congestion, and I think it's important that when we have a transit strategy, it incorporates all aspects of transit, even partial transit. It's very difficult for people to get to and from transit hubs because they're so far in between transit operations, such as buses. Um, I was on uh, I was on the news a few weeks back talking about, the bus lanes, and like I said, I'm pro-transit, anti-congestion, and we're converting bus lanes. My thought was to convert the bus lanes into HOV lanes during rush hour traffic so that we could make traffic flow. But converting, making bus transit-oriented communities not have parking is a challenge because when you go to Rouge Hill GO Station, um, the parking lot's full, right? So people are commuting. And the reason for that is because we don't have a fluid transit ecosystem. If that was to change, then maybe my opinion would change. But as of right now, it's just not feasible to, eliminate parking from our transit hubs because the transit ecosystem is not built in a way that supports fluid transit to those ecosystems.
I think this question is very closely related to the first one. Again, it's planning and development there. I think to treat everything on the same across the board with one stroke is not the right way to go. Transit is a very multifaceted issue, and especially in this particular ward where we are chronically underserved. But I think it's important again that the transit that is rolled out and the network that services our communities reflect the needs of our communities. And I think we need to be at the table there to ensure that the future plans and processes are the things that we're included in.
No, in fact, I believe that we, Ward 25, have been neglected in a major explicit way because not only this particular ward, but in Victoria Park, taking away parking spots, or the state of the suspension of the LRT. So no, I do not agree. In fact, instead of decreasing the services, this is a growing population that it's a taxpayer just like any other wards. So we need to improve. We need to give them more. And that moves the economy. If they have good transportation, they can go to work, they can go to school. But that neglecting Ward 25 has to stop. They need a strong voice that speaks truth to power. So I am against it, and I will speak against it without fear.
No, you need parking at TTC stations. You need parking at TTC stations. If they want to build adjacent or like condominiums adjacent to, say, Warden Station, Kennedy Station, Victoria Park Station, they need to have parking elements in those divisions that are available for people to commute via car to those stations and then take the TTC.
No. I'm laughing because I just don't understand it. The city continuously puts the wagon before the horse. They want us to change our lifestyle and reduce dependency on cars out here without building us the transit. So if they want to build transit without considering the fact that how will we get to the stations? We drive there. That's the reality. The bus services out here are lacking. So we end up driving to our closest stations. And if there's no parking there, what's going to happen? People are not going to take transit. They're just going to drive. So if the goal of the city is to get us out of our cars, this is not the way to go about it.
I think it's important to recognize that many people in Scarborough have car, not because it's a luxury, it is the necessity. And so in order to develop a transit plan for Scarborough, it needs to be working together with the current modes of transportation that many Scarborough families have. Many of them are struggling themselves and taking a lot of time out of their day on commutes and in transit. So I would support a holistic method where it's actually building up on new transit, new rapid transit, but at the same time respectful of the needs of the community as it stands right now. As somebody who lives in the north part of the area, I drive a car, and I think it's important to recognize that many people have car because that's the only way that they can get to places of work and school in an effective way.
Yeah, for first of all, as a step, as the next councillor, I will take consultations and speak with our neighbors to find out what the solutions will be, because we represent the constituents. The constituents are our boss. We will answer to them. So we need to hold town halls, consultations, and feedback coming from them, and then we'll move forward in a practical way.
Very delicate question, because we need housing and we need people to live somewhere, but we can't have housing without the proper checks and balances. If I were to be elected, I would consider, first of all, always listen to my constituents, right? They're the ones that voice their opinion the greatest. And without their consent, I believe, we need to respect their opinion, right?
Okay. Of course, with any process, this would be a process. So I would need to research it, and I would need to have all of the facts in front of me. I would need to work with other people and find out who else is working on this. For me personally, I spent a lot of my career enforcing illegal basement apartments and illegal as a firefighter, that's what I did. We went around and it's always complaints driven, right? But we followed complaints, and we used to shut down illegal rooming houses. I did that for years, right? So now all of a sudden, the flavor of the day is saying, oh, we have a housing crisis, and I don't think because of COVID, and it's all long and it's all complicated, but it is processes. So I'm not sure if I answered your question. I went on a little rampage because, like I said, I spent so much of my career shutting down illegal rooming houses.
Well, my main concern is safety and security of our city. As you know, I've been very vocal of how the city has changed for the worse in terms of I mean, we just had a shooting at the Galloways. So getting back to your question, I want there to be some legislation and some laws regarding how landlords can choose their tenants and how many tenants you can have in one place. Just down the street from where I live, I've got 20 people living in a house. I don't know how you fit 20 people in a house, and they're all students. I don't know where they're sleeping because I haven't walked through. All I know is that there's like 15 cars in that driveway. And these are things that we as neighbors need to speak up, identifying these problems and coming up to a solution on how to solve the problem where our safety isn't in jeopardy.
Yeah, as I walk through the community, I can tell which houses are rentals and which houses aren't based on the upkeep. And I actually made a piece. I'm making neighborhood specific pieces, and one of the pieces that I made for the Highland Creek area, which we were last night at the All Candidates Forum.
Mhm.
On that piece, it specifically said that I wouldn't support sixplexes in Highland Creek. The reason why I said that was because in that particular neighborhood, they're already inundated with student housing tied into the university, and that neighborhood is feeling the brunt of the relationship with the university and the students and the devaluing of the properties, the upkeep, the garbage, the excess parking, the excess noise, the excess speeding. So I think it's a very intricate conversation that we must have in how we, assimilate the density in our communities. I think what we need to do is focus on, providing a wraparound strategy for how do you integrate gentle density along with licensing for that density, along with supports around, upkeep of the property, property tax, things like that nature. And I think it's very important that if you have someone in council, you want to make sure that they're able to wrap their head around those type of issues to make sure that the community is still vibrant and the people in the community still feel safe. And I think that's the number one piece that people are missing in that conversation.
Question. We definitely have pockets in this ward where, rooming houses, multi-tenant homes are a big concern. And the concern stems in multiple different aspects. It's not just health and safety, but it's a multitude of different issues that go on all at the same time. So I think the key problem here, as we all know, as you mentioned yourself, the city expanded its enforcement powers to deal with the rooming house issue. But with anything, you can expand all the enforcement powers you want, but if you don't actually enforce the laws that you enact, it's pointless. And I think this is a great case study where, technically speaking, the rules should provide enhanced safeguards for both residents that live on streets that have rooming homes and people that are actually occupying those rooming homes. So it's safety for everyone, but they're not being implemented. And that goes back to a number of concerns. Number one, it's a chronic underfunding of our bylaw enforcement officers. So we need to ensure that we're funding it properly and we're resourcing it properly. Number two, I also want to take a look at the equity distribution of our bylaw enforcement.
Okay.
See how that's spread around the city. Are we getting the same amount of attention and service here as other parts? And ensure that at least we're getting equitable treatment there. And also, I think the third one, if I at risk of going too long, is education. Also ensuring that we educate the public and residents for things to look out for, health and safety concerns, and also in reaching out to landlords that we, know exist and are there, and ensuring that we're educating them and we're doing everything in our powers to ensure that they're abiding by the laws as well.
Okay.
I believe that everything has to be done in a scientific manner. As a future PhD, I use science a lot. So we need to study what's not working. And I'll tell you, at first glance, what's not working is the status quo. In my neighborhood, for example, the rooming houses keep proliferating and they diminish the neighborhood when they're not done properly, because sometimes it becomes like an in and out door. And there are many cars parked on the street, loud noises and there are many elderly residents living in my neighborhood. So the way it's happening right now, it's not working. So I would sit with the neighborhoods, with the people, with the constituents, and hear their concerns. And if the bylaw has to be changed, it has to be changed. I would champion that, definitely.
Yeah, so being a realtor, this is actually very important to me, and it always has been a major concern. For one, our bylaws need to be enforced. We have occupancy bylaws per dwelling units for condos, single family homes, townhouses, etc. They all have occupancy limits. Now, there's for years and years, goes back decades, illegal rooming houses in some areas of the ward where, say, the student population couldn't find adequate housing because of the university wasn't building it. Now, those landlords, if they haven't applied to come into compliance now that Scarborough has made legal rooming houses being licensed, and so those properties need to come into compliance with the bylaw in terms of fire regulations, in terms of occupancy, in terms of, all the bylaws, right? They're there for a reason. They shouldn't be ignored, and it's not incumbent on a neighbor to do the investigation for city bylaw officers in order to lay charges.
This is a great question, Ron, and it's a complicated question because this is exactly what we were worried about. When this was introduced to City Hall, and the way it got passed was that there was going to be bylaw officers that were going to enforce all of these rules to make sure everything works out for residents. We knew, residents out here, we knew that wasn't going to happen. It is next to impossible to get a bylaw officer to come out here for even simpler things, let alone something as complex as this. So this is one of the reasons why, when we are opposed to things like the commercial retail spaces in our neighborhoods, or why we're opposed to things like the sixplexes, is because there's a real distrust in the city when it comes to planning. And this is, another perfect example. So yes, there's a lot of work. It's complex. I get it. I think, it's not a simple solution, as we just need more bylaw officers. That's obviously one of the tools in the toolbox. But the reality is it's a much more complicated issue. We're talking to residents that bring this up all the time, especially those who have tenants in their houses. Perhaps they're renting out the basements. And, they're talking about how do we, there's many layers to this, but I'll leave it as we definitely need to do a lot more, and it will require other levels of government as well to handle bad tenants, as well as, of course, bad landlords who, decide that it's okay to stuff 12 people into, small houses.
I think this is the biggest issue that I've heard. There are a lot of bylaws within the city that are not being reinforced and enforced within Scarborough, and we pay the same amount of taxes, but we don't get the level of care and attention and support that's necessary in enforcing bylaws that are already established. So I would actually propose further hiring of bylaw officers for Scarborough to make sure that many of these bylaws, including the bylaw around housing standards, be enforced, and landlords who break those bylaws are held accountable.
Yes, I will support main street businesses because we need more businesses in Scarborough, and we need to support our small and entrepreneurs.
When developed at proper speed and in the areas where they can be placed, businesses can thrive. Scarborough is one of the most diverse areas in the province. And I personally believe that we need to bring Scarborough to the forefront. We need to invite people from other places to come to Scarborough and experience all the cultures that we have, not just, similar to what the beaches does and every other, corner of the city. I believe it's a Scarborough time to shine in our city as diverse as we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My whole campaign is all local, right? I would do everything all local. I totally support job creation. I totally support Buy Canada and obviously Buy Ward 25. So yes, and absolutely, I would support the BIA, right? The local businesses. I would support them in every single way I could.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I wanted to have a little get together over at Lamont's Bakery. They just didn't get back to me, and it's kind of sad because they've got some awesome food over there. I believe me, and the people there are really nice and welcoming. I would love to tour around and like go to different eateries. I mean, that's kind of like what makes Toronto special is these small businesses. I love food. I'm a food freak. So I go to a lot of restaurants and I love going to small little diners and something different. I mean, that's what makes this city so multicultural and special. However, I would like to experiment with other businesses, maybe mechanics, maybe with small stores like coffee shops. I mean, I would really love to support them. I just didn't even know some of them don't exist. So city should support them.
Past president of the Scarborough Business Association, I'm all about business. I'm all about creating opportunities for businesses to grow. Highland Creek specifically, they tried to put a BIA together. What I would actually like is a pan Scarborough BIA because the BIAs in the different parts of the city, waterfront, it's quite a few out there, but Scarborough only has four now. I think they have five BIAs, but the catchment area for the revenue, and I actually have a report on this, and I'll share it with you as well.
Sure.
Talking about the strategy with the Pan Scarborough BIA, the catchment area for potential levies would be about 18 million if we included all the BIAs in Scarborough as one catchment. But the waterfront or the business, I think it's waterfront BIA or the financial district BIA, um, collects more, and don't quote me on this, this could be actually incorrect, but I'll send you the report so you could have the facts. But the catchment area of the financial district, a little 4 block radius, collects more revenue than all of Scarborough BIAs combined, right? So if we create a pan Scarborough BIA, then we'll have access to funding that will be far greater and far serve more people across Scarborough than any other opportunity, as opposed to having the 5 individual BIs. I think we have Lawrence, Wexford. There's a new one at Centennial or Cedarbrae, sorry.
Yep.
I think one or two others. So I think a pan Scarborough approach. Some may not like it, but I think that's the best way for Scarborough to have a united voice and for the business community in Scarborough to really excel. If we work as a conglomerate block as opposed to individual smaller BAs for Scarborough.
I think business improvement areas are important. They identify key areas that need some priority, but they need to be rolled out effectively, and that's again through consultation with the community, and ensuring that it reflects the needs of our community and it fits within the community as well.
Main Street businesses, yes, I believe that I have an MBA in community economic development, and one of the foundations of economic development for small wards like ours is supporting small to medium-sized businesses. And there are many ways to go about it. And we need to check, for example, that when there is construction, that it's not interrupting their operations. And if they're incurring costs because of our construction, us as a city government, if I were elected, we need to compensate them. So there are many ways to support businesses. In fact, they're a crucial part of the development of Ward 25. So I intend to work with them in their development and in the support that they need.
Oh, definitely. Business organizations, they do a fairly good job throughout the city of organizing for the local businesses that they serve, and are a direct conduit to city things that they may need, like a permit for a street festival, and those sorts of things. One of the best features I love about Toronto is all the independent spaces that we have for small businesses. So if you want to open up a small restaurant to take out there's lots of spaces for that. In other areas of the city, you see those places being bought out and being gentrified. And there's if you drive anywhere where that's happening in the city, good useful buildings are now removed and inserted with a condo base for tower. And those spaces, for one, increase the rent for businesses that they can't move back in. And a lot of them right now are completely vacant. So small business is the heart of the community. And if you live in a community and you want to open a small business in that community, you should have available spaces in order to do it.
Of course. I think Scarborough is untapped. And I say this all the time. We're the backbone of the city, but we are untapped. We have all the talents in the world, especially this ward. People don't talk enough about this. We have a university here. We have a college campus here. We have another one nearby, within walking distance of the ward. And we have the professionals here. We have the students who graduate, who live here in the hopes of staying in Toronto before it leads to the brain drain. I think there's so much economic potential here that we need to support. And that work can't happen without city infrastructure, but also without the BIAs, right? We need to make sure businesses who have the intellectual capacity, right? They more so than the city, because they're the ones that are in the business world. They're the ones that are driving the economy. We need to make sure they're at the table. So a stronger BIA is a stronger economy.
Right. I think BIAs are a great way to improve business development, but in Scarborough, we do not have the same kind of style of shops like we have in downtown Toronto. So our BIAs have to have a unique style. Some of the North York BIAs have tested different models. So as somebody who has supported small businesses, as somebody who wants to have more employment opportunities for young people in Scarborough where they can go to a work 15 minutes, 10 minutes from their home, we need to have a way to save some of these plazas from being taken away. So in order to build more businesses, we need a BIA model, but the model is going to be very much customized for the needs of Scarborough, as opposed to a model that is currently in place in other parts of the city, particularly downtown. So a bit more of nuanced work is necessary in protecting employment lands and protecting our plazas and protecting the workplaces that our young people can have meaningful jobs.